Commissioner Chatterley says yes. Are we gonna,
Yes.
we'll let this person sign in and we'll get going. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Raton City Commission to order. Desiree, could we have roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Sagata,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster. Present. Commissioner Chavez.
Present.
Commissioner Giacomo. And Commissioner Chatterley.
Present.
All right, could you all please join me in pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank everybody for showing up tonight. A couple of announcements. Our next regular commission meeting will be Tuesday, July 11th, 6 p.m. here in the chambers. All city offices will be closed on Tuesday, July 4th in honor of Independence Day. Okay, at this time, we are going to take items from citizens present. Seeing that I think you are all here for one item, I'm going to ask that you select one or two people to present. We've got a rather lengthy agenda tonight we've got to get through, and this is our business meeting. So if you want to appoint two people to speak, we'll give you 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I don't know if this is on. My name is Elizabeth Hampel, and I'm a community member, a local business owner, and a federal contractor for the New Mexico Department of Health, whom works within all of Colfax County. I'm here on behalf of supporting a worthy cause in our community, that our local fire department receive a livable and worthy wage for the work that they do in our communities. From July 1 of 2023, which is next week, to June 30th of 2024, it is predicted that the firefighters will have an increase of a 2.5 raise. Unfortunately, even though an increase in a wage is always a nice thing, this does not support the increase of living in this area. Firefighters, even though it's a 2.5 increase, they're getting a very, very small increase in their pay. Most are unable to afford to live and provide for their families. A firefighter, ones who do not have their EMT certificate, are only getting minimum wage, which is $12 an hour. $12 an hour. That's the same that our lifeguards are getting, that our teenagers, some of them are 15 years old, they can't even drive yet, and they're getting $12 an hour. A firefighter who has some certificates are getting $12.50 an hour. Our lieutenant is getting $14.86 an hour, and our captain is only receiving $15.49 an hour. If we were to break this down and just do some simple math, if they were to work just a full-time job of 40 hours a week, which we all know they don't, they work closer to 50 to 70 hours a week. But if they were to work 40 hours a week, this would include $26,000 for just a firefighter a year. $26,000. The lieutenant would be getting just barely over $30,000, and then our captain, who is head overall, does admin administration, all that kind of stuff, is a little bit over $40,000. This is before taxes. This is unacceptable, honestly. This is not a very livable wage. And I know there's a special formula that had been mentioned behind closed doors. The special formulas are only really considered if they were to be working overtime, considerably. We have firefighters who have and possibly are leaving the department due to extremely low pay. Most firefighters love what they do, but if they can't take care of their families, they are forced to find better employment elsewhere. This leaves the department, our city, and our community in a very uncertain situation. When I see how much the city is paying our firefighters versus other departments and other city positions, it tells me how you value our heroes. What incentive have you given the firefighters to stay in our community? We need our firefighters to stay here to protect us. They have our back. We need to have their back. So at this time, I'd like to invite the union rep to come up and say a few words as well.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Eutimio Ortiz, Vice President, New Mexico Professional Firefighters, and I stand here in support of your local firefighters. To give you some perspective on wages, a career captain who's tenured in the Raton City Fire Department is making less than most entry-level firefighters around the state. Firefighters are reasonable and they're logical, and I ask you to work with union leadership and give them the time and opportunity to devise a plan financially with you to increase their wages. Give them an opportunity to have hope, give them an opportunity to reduce the attrition in their department. It takes a firefighter years to gain the experience they need to function on their own, and every time they lose a firefighter in this service, that's years of experience that's walking out the door. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. I believe we have one other person.
Thank you for your time. Sorry you have a big workload. Yeah, maybe you guys should put a little overtime in like the fire department and listen to the whole community instead of just giving 3 people 3 minutes. I think that's pretty, that's not good. Sometimes things get overlooked, set by the wayside. Sometimes we just make a mistake. That's okay. $12 an hour for a firefighter, that's wrong. I'm telling you, I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm not going away. This room's gonna get bigger and bigger. If we have to I'm gonna go to our churches, just like we did the referendum, which was signing all the signatures to try to get everything passed. I'm gonna go to Albuquerque. I'm gonna go to the TV stations, the radios, everything I can. I'm gonna contact 1,000 customers that I will have hunting season come in from all over the country that are successful businessmen and ask them to help me get this taken care of. You know, you think, well, we pay them overtime. These guys are working so much, all they do when they're home is they go to bed because they're wore out. Your benefits aren't cutting it to keep and retain men. It's money. It's all about money. I've got a list that my wife was gonna read to you of all local businesses in town, their starting pay. Out of 25 here, there's 3 that started at $12 an hour. 1, Arby's. Somebody making french fries, $12 an hour, compared to one of these guys operating the jaws of life to save somebody's life. Sonic, $12 an hour to serve ice cream when they run into a burning building and risk their lives. $12.50 an hour, Mesa Vista Lodge, or Mesa Vista Vet. Shoveling horse manure, $12.50 an hour. Somebody giving CPR like they do. This is wrong. This is wrong. And I strongly encourage you, the legacy that you're going to leave is either going to be, we've had to get rid of the 6 of you, 7 of you to get this changed. Make it all the hard work you've done. Make that your legacy. All the hard work you've done for Raton. Don't be remembered for the 7 people that paid the fire department $12 an hour. I've been so proud to be here from Raton, but I want to put a bag over my head when I talk to somebody and say, we pay our fire department $12 an hour. I'm ashamed to say I'm from Raton and have that $12 an hour. These guys deserve a heck of a lot more than that. What if they all go on strike? You know what? There's human nature. Half the people would say, you know what? I'm not going to save their house. Not those guys, not a firefighter. He doesn't think like that. He'd say, you know what, $12 an hour, I'm going in your house, Neil. Save your wife. It's wrong, guys. It's wrong.
May I say something?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to let the mayor talk, but I just want to say to all of you, we appreciate your care and concern a great deal, and I think we're going to just spend a few minutes explaining their pay scale and how it works, or at least investigating, and I hope you can all walk out of here feeling better. So I'm asking you to please open your ears and listen because it is a complex system. Thank you.
Mr. Barry, do you want to explain the FLSA and the,
I will, Mayor.
Kelly?
I'll make a couple of comments, brief comments, and I would start by saying that Raton firefighters are a represented group. Their conditions that we're hearing about here tonight, wages, working conditions, also fringe benefits, and schedule are covered under a collective bargaining agreement. And so I would caution the commission on entering into a back and forth discussion on that here. In the collective bargaining agreement, the city recognizes that the exclusive bargaining agent for Raton firefighters is International Association of Firefighters. And so we're kind of limited on entering into a discussion that can appear to be a negotiation on wages, on fringe benefits, working conditions, or schedule. All of that is negotiated, and we have some of the people in the room that negotiate for this group. That collective bargaining agreement is in effect for an additional year, and sometime between now and July 1st of 2024, I anticipate that a collective bargaining negotiation will occur again under the terms that we agree to, the ground rules for negotiating. So I would caution the commission about your comments in regard to this. I appreciate the citizens who are concerned about the firefighters, who hear the information. I get the emotion with some of the people that have spoken, and I'll make some very brief comments on it, but we got to respect the terms of this collective bargaining agreement. Now, I think most of the people here, not the firefighters, not you, sir, from IAFF, who I have not heard from you before, and I have never met you, but here you are at a public meeting. They understand the schedule that firefighters work. Most people here understand the federal law on a 40-hour work week. They know that there's a law that says if you generally work 40 hours a week, that's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday for most of us. And if you work more hours than that, you're paid time and a half in overtime. These gentlemen understand that there is a federal law, Federal Labor Standards Act, that provides an exemption 7K, that generally applies to firefighters. It can apply to law enforcement, but generally this applies to firefighters. Firefighters call it the Kelly schedule, and it's specific in federal law for emergency workers. Now, our law enforcement works a 40-hour week. Every other employee in the city of Raton is covered by the law that allows for a 40-hour week, time and a half after 40 hours. But Raton firefighters work on the Kelly schedule, as most professional fire departments do. And while they understand it, a lot of people here really probably have never heard of a Kelly schedule. They've never heard of a 7K exemption or the Federal Labor Standards Act. But that's what we work in. It's a very different type of a schedule. And in our contract, as a matter of fact, there's a complicated formula with how you would equate a 40-hour week with someone working a Kelly schedule, and it's very different. Now, the gentleman that spoke about the hourly wage, yes, that's correct. But what we look at is what are our firefighters paid, and we do a very diligent job of checking with peer agencies to make sure that we are competitive in those wages. And I would say to you commissioners, we are competitive in what we pay firefighters. You can't compare that hourly wage with a 40-hour week. It's not comparable. And I think most people are under the impression that, you know, when you talk about working at the Sonic or you're working at McDonald's, that's a fair comparison, and it's just not a fair comparison. I can tell you that our firefighters are paid a competitive wage, and I'll tell you a little more as well. Raton is the smallest municipality in the state of New Mexico that has a full-time paid fire department. Many cities that are bigger than Raton, that have a budget a lot larger than Raton, they don't have a full-time paid professional fire department. And a lot of cities that are Raton size or bigger, they privatize the ambulance service. They maybe have a couple of paid managers, and they have a volunteer fire department. We're very unique in New Mexico, and we're working hard to hold on to that. I think it gives the best service to the citizens of our town. So when you look at your budget, and we are at the beginning of a new budget year, we're closing out the old budget year, the police department is the most expensive department that you have in the city, followed closely by fire and ambulance. Only, we have a lot of openings in police. We're not able to fill those jobs. So effectively, the actual cost of departments, the fire department is your biggest investment. We spend more on the fire department than we do any department in the city of Raton. We train a professional department, we equip a professional department, we pay a professional salary. Some of our it's hard to find peers out there in New Mexico because a lot of towns don't follow this model. A lot of big cities do. Mr. Ortiz, you might be familiar with, compare us to Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Las Cruces, but there's a big difference in those cities. We have a Raton budget that we're doing on, but we're not pleading poverty. We invest heavily in our fire department. Not only our wages, which I'm not going to get into details on, but in this budget, we're investing in 2 major pieces of fire apparatus and 2 new ambulances. You'll talk about one of the ambulances tonight. Those 4 pieces of equipment add up to $2.7 million that the city of Raton will invest in new equipment to keep modern services, to provide the services for our community. So we're committed to paying all the costs. We're not pleading poverty. We pay professional wages. We keep this department trained and equipped. And I'll wrap up my comments right there, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. You know, we all appreciate the work that our firefighters do.
Yeah, we do.
We appreciate the work, and I see heads shaking that we don't. We do. I have got, you know, the list of what everybody made last year on their W-2. And quite frankly, I would like to make that kind of money. But and I understand some of it is overtime, but it's not forced overtime.
The reason it's overtime is because my husband is a captain and he's not making fair wages, no matter what you want to say.
Commissioners, I gotta caution you
Yep.
on this type of discussion.
You can all you want, but what's going on is my husband has to work overtime just to pay the bills when he would qualify for welfare. There's something wrong with your system, that all these people working for you guys are not paid a fair wage, and you keep saying the overtime. If you would hire people and pay them a diligent, fair pay, you wouldn't have people leave then as soon as they get their certification and go somewhere else, because they'd stay because they get paid a decent wage, and y'all aren't doing that. And shame on y'all.
And I would say this was a negotiated contract that was agreed upon by the firefighters union. And I think we're gonna end conversation right there and move on to business. Thank you for your comments. This time, we're gonna move into action items. 6A, deliberate and act on approval of June 13th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Y'all have had a chance to look at the minutes?
I saw no problem, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our June 13th meeting. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, deliberate and act on Lodgers Tax Advisory Board recommendations. Mr. Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, you have a memorandum on, that contains recommendations from the Lodgers Tax Board. The Lodgers Tax Board met on June 21st, and I will go through the memo for you. I would recommend that you address
Can't close the doors.
Can't close the doors.
I would recommend that you address these items individually. So, the first recommendation, Lodgers Tax Board recommends to the City Commission that $19,050 be awarded to the Run to Raton for music bands, security, sanitation, radio ads, insurance, print ad in the visitor's guide, raffle tickets, and online ads. The funding would be from the contingency fund. I'll go on down and y'all can decide how you want to address these, but second recommendation, Lodgers Tax Board is recommending that $5,007 be awarded to the Discovery Map International for 10,500 copies of the City of Raton Discovery Map for the Tourist Information Center Print Advertisement Fund. I can tell you that staff worked on this. You have a copy of the proposed map in your packet. I really like the map and I like the initiative, and so we can answer any questions on that one specifically. Third, Lodgers Tax Board is recommending to you that $7,890 be awarded to Phillips Broadcasting for 1,052 City of Raton event ads on 3 radio stations, app ads, website ads, and social media ads for FY24 coming from the Radio Ads Fund. And then lastly, the recommendation is that $11,876 be allocated to the Center for Community Innovation for a pledge of matching funds for the New Mexico True Co-op Marketing Grant funded from the contingency fund. And Mayor, I would comment that Mayor Pro Tem Schuster had mentioned to me that she is a member of the Center Board and would abstain from action on that particular item.
Alrighty.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I have one.
Yep.
On the Run to Raton, I noticed that security is $6,000, which seemed really high, and I wondered if there was some explanation there. When you got the bands at $9,250, security at $6,000.
Originally, it was 4, and the board thought that because of what had happened in Red River, that maybe they should just get more security, just in case, even though they're not thinking anything's gonna happen, just to,
Fair point, thank you so much.
yes, ma'am.
And Mayor, Commissioner Chatterley, I could tell you that we have been in conversations with state police and with county sheriff about providing that additional security. There will probably be some overtime costs that go along with that.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, let's take this item under consideration in this first item. Would entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion and a second to approve the recommendation from the Lodgers Tax Board for the Run to Raton. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Second recommendation, any comments, questions?
Motion to approve the Discovery Maps for $5,007.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the award of $5,007 for the Raton Discovery Maps. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Third item on there was the Lodgers Tax Board recommendation for Phillips Broadcasting. Any questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve $7,890 be awarded to Phillips Broadcasting for 1,052 City of Raton event ads on 3 stations. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. And the fourth recommendation from the tax board was recommending that $11,876 be awarded to the Center for Community Innovation for a pledge of matching funds for the New Mexico True Co-op Marketing Grant. Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
That comes to a total of $36,976, guys. On all 4 of them.
All 4 of them? 36,000?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, vote by sign of aye.
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 Abstain.
Opposed? 1 abstain. Alrighty, those items carried. Moving on to item C. Deliberate and act on an agreement between the City of Raton and Grow Raton. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, you'll remember back in April, you did receive a written request from Grow Raton. They asked for funding in the amount of $25,000 for the economic development services that they provide. Grow Raton is a not-for-profit 501c3 that has operated in Raton for a number of years. Mr. Wentling is present here from the Grow Raton board, and you'll recall during the budget discussions, we did wind up including the request in the budget. The agreement that you have in front of you would state that we would make monthly payments to Grow Raton, $2,083 a month to total up to $25,000, and it lays out the responsibilities for Grow Raton in providing services for in exchange for that $25,000. I'll remind you that we talked about funding that from the residuals from the economic development increment. And we said at the time that the economic development increment, it's not quite a quarter cent, but it's roughly a quarter cent it is only for economic development funds. We've accrued some funds in the past. It'll generate over $250,000 is anticipated, and we don't have obligations for that yet. So it wasn't, the $25,000 was included in the current interim budget, and this agreement comes to you, and then Grow Raton will approve that as well, but the services are set to commence July 1st. It's a 1-year term, commencing July 1st, run through the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, Mr. Wentling, any comments?
No, we thank you very much. Our board has reviewed the contract. We found 2 words that need to be changed. Scott changed them, and I understand it's in your final copy right now. So with all that said and done, we appreciate your support.
All right, any other comments, questions for Mr. Wentling or Mr. Berry? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion and a second to approve the agreement between the City of Raton and Grow Raton. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item E, deliberate and act on bid award. Nope, sorry. Item D, deliberate and act on award of RFP for Girls Circle Boys Council Direct Youth Services. Michael Ann.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. In your packet, we do have a recommendation for award. This is for the Girls Circle Boys Council programs. You'll recall earlier this year, our current subcontractor had provided notice that they would no longer be providing these services. So as a result, we did go out for RFP, and this year we did split the RFP, and we did the Girls Circle Boys Council under one RFP and then the restorative under a separate RFP. We did not get any proposals for the restorative justice, so we are going out again, and that'll be advertised starting Thursday as a legal notice in the World Journal, and then it will also be available on our website. So we hope to maybe the second meeting in July bring you a recommendation for that. But going back to the Girls Circle and the Boys Council, as we've talked in the past, this is a grant that the city has been a fiscal agent for since probably about 2009. So over the years, our programs have really become a model across the state, and with that we've seen increased funding. So we did get one proposal this year, and it would be from a new provider, Youth Heartline. They are based out of Taos, New Mexico, and they do have expertise in these types of services. So even though we got one proposal, we did still have a committee review them to do our due diligence and do the actual review. I did have one committee member that is on our JJAC board, And they said this is probably the best proposal that they've seen over the years, so that was encouraging, and I am confident that I think Youth Heartline can provide the needed services for the next fiscal year. So with that, that is my recommendation, is that we would award the subcontract to Youth Heartline for fiscal year 2024. I've put in your packet the subcontract agreement. I haven't filled in any of the blanks yet, but we would be contracting with them for an amount of $110,385, and you can see the breakdown between the two programs for the Girls Circle Boys Council. And this does require, if it's approved this evening by the commission, it would require that I submit the proposed subcontract to CYFD for their approval, and then once we get their approval, then we could sign everything and execute it effective, hopefully July 1st would be the expectation.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Michael Ann?
No. It's a great program. I think we need it. So I will move to approve the RFP for Girls Circle.
Also, our coordinator is here this evening, Danielle Vanderpool, if you have any specific questions regarding these programs.
Have a motion.
Okay.
Have a second?
Second?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no.
I didn't hear
I
you.
thought someone else had seconded
I
all.
didn't hear it, sorry.
Sorry, did Lindy?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We have a motion and a second to approve the RFP for Girls Circle Boys Council. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, deliberate and act on bid award for Giordano Building Demolition Project. Mr. Barry.
Mayor and Commission, the Giordano building is a brick building that is located immediately south of In-Bank, the Yucca Hotel building. So if you move south from the building, you have a vacant lot, then you have the brick building, and then you have the old J.C. Penney building. And through the course of trying to get some of these properties lined up, the trustees to the Giordano property had offered to give the property away to the city of Raton. This is a deteriorated building. This is an abandoned building. It hasn't had an active use for a number of decades, and the city of Raton has taken ownership and possession of the Giordano building with the intent of cleaning it up. Previously, asbestos-containing material has been removed from the building, although the building currently is in the state brownfield program. The state has conducted a phase 1 assessment of it, and that calls for, there's some concerns about contamination of groundwater or soil potentially, which would call for phase 2 work. Phase 2 work would be actually testing, sampling, and doing laboratory analysis of those materials. However, the New Mexico Environment Department has consented to allow Raton to tear the building down. And I have taken sealed bids for demoing the building. Now, we had a lot of interest in the demo of the building. You can see there that we have received 4 bids. The low bid was submitted by Rocky Road Gravel and Well Drilling LLC in the amount of $75,400. That is exclusive of gross receipts tax. If approved by the commission, the demolition work would start soon as we can after July 1st, the beginning of the new fiscal year. This money would come from general fund reserves. We do not have grant money for the demo. And as we go through brownfield funding, and we'll talk about the brownfield some more, but it'll pay for abatement, testing, sampling, and remediation, but not the demolition, as I understand. So as we clean these buildings up, the demolition is going to come back to us, and this will give you an idea of what what we're looking at on demolition of a commercial building. It's a 2-story building. Under this, the contractor would have to remove, load, haul, and legally dispose of the debris. My recommendation is for award of a contract to Rocky Road Gravel and Well Drilling LLC for the bid amount of $75,400.
Thank you. Any comments, questions for Mr. Berry?
Make a motion to approve bid award.
A second.
A motion and a second to approve the bid award to Rocky Road Gravel and Well Drilling for the amount of $75,400. Is there any further discussion?
One quick one, did they get the resident bear that was living in there out?
Good question.
He's gonna get in the truck with the truck driver.
All right.
We'll go to Wagon Mountain, yeah, relocate.
No other question.
You'll like it down there.
All righty. All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, deliberate and act on an amendment to Arthur Regional Landfill GGH Wagon Mound LLC agreement for increase in tipping fees per contract. Mr. Berry. Let's see, Mr. Phillips, so.
Mayor and Commission, you do have a document in your packet entitled Agreement to Extend a Contract, and this is put together by the Public Works Director. This is for tipping at the Levi landfill for Raton solid waste. Generally, we transport about 20 tons a day, 5 days a week, to the Levi landfill. 20 tons is basically one truckload per day, so 5 days a week. And we've done this at the Levi landfill for several years. I'll read the agreement. It's fairly short. In accordance with the contract dated July 1st, 2021, both parties mutually agreed to a 1-year extension of the contract for the above referenced project, City of Raton solid waste tipping fee. The contract extension shall cover the term from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2024. In accordance with Section 3.3 of the contract, the price per ton will increase by the CPI figure for water, sewer, and trash. The CPI adjustment for the previous annual average is an increase of 5.7% over the 2022 adjusted price of $28.56 per ton. This will increase the tipping fees from the original bid price of $27.50 per ton to a new unit value of $30.19 per ton. That's the agreement for your consideration, Mayor and Commission.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Berry?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. I guess one comment. This is still a better rate than we were receiving from our previous vendor?
Well, previously, we went to the Midway landfill, which is located north of Pueblo. And the tipping fee at Midway landfill, it's a waste management landfill, is less, but the haul is about twice the distance. So the haul costs more, and when you add both those together, yes, the Levi landfill is the better option.
All righty, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement to extend the contract. Is there any, well, I already asked that. All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, deliberate and act on fiscal year 24 dispatch agreement between the City of Raton and Colfax County. Mr. Berry.
Mayor Commission, this is a renewal of an existing agreement. The City of Raton does maintain a 911 dispatch center here in City Hall, and we dispatch for many of the Colfax County agencies. You'll recall in previous meetings we've approved or renewed agreements with Town of Springer and the Village of Cimarron, and now we're talking about the agreement with the County of Colfax. The current agreement will expire in July of 2023. Now, in preparation of this agreement, I have looked at call volumes, and I'll just summarize real quickly what those look like. In 2022, our dispatch center handled 9,887 calls for service. That can be law enforcement, a medically related call, or related to fire generally. Break it down into those three categories. The City of Raton accounted for 71% of those calls. Cimarron accounted for 4.9%, Springer 5.5%, and the remainder, about 19% of the calls were related to Colfax County. I'll tell you that in Colfax County calls, that could include calls for service in Maxwell, Vermejo Park, Farley, Philmont, and some of the other incorporated areas in Colfax County, about 19%. I took the cost of our dispatch. This is coming from our current budget, and this is a hard cost to the city of Raton. About $427,000 is what we pay to operate dispatch. Again, that's not counting grants that we get for equipment upgrades and those kind of things. Generally, that's related to personnel. We have seen some increases over the past few years. Some of that could be reimbursable if it falls under training and travel. I think we budgeted about $7,000 for that. But if we take the Colfax County share at about 19%, it's close to $80,000. Because some of this could be reimbursable, I put a nominal figure in the agreement of $75,000. That would be for a term of 1 year that we would propose to Colfax County. That's an increase from $49,000 and some change. That's my recommendation to you, is that we go forward with the agreement with the yearly amount of $75,000 as the fee.
Any questions, comments for Mr. Berry?
Definitely appreciate the work you did on getting the data behind that. That's
Yes.
very helpful in making this decision. I'm happy to make a motion to approve that contract.
A motion and a second to approve the contract between the city of Raton and Colfax County for dispatch services. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, deliberate and act on fiscal year 24 E911 grant agreement project number 24E10. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, also related to the dispatch center would be the attached grant agreement from the New Mexico Department of Finance Administration. As we said, generally they will maintain the equipment. The grant offer is not to exceed an amount of $207,552. This will keep the equipment generally up to date. As you can imagine, the requirements for E911 systems, they change regularly, and keeping fairly current equipment is important in the dispatch center. So this is, again, an agreement that we've had with the state repeatedly in the past to help us maintain the dispatch center. So recommend in favor of approval of this agreement.
That's for the, all three of the water, the power, and the fire in that city?
Well, not under this particular item, but
That's the next one.
That's the next one. We're up above that.
Well, darn.
It's all right.
I will move to approve FY24 E911 grant agreement project number 24-E10.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the grant agreement for the E911 services. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item I, deliberate and act on contracts between the City of Raton and Envision IT Solutions to provide managed IT services for the City of Raton, Raton Water Works Public Service, Raton Police Department, and Raton Fire and EMS. Mr. Berry?
Mayor, Commissioner Javis, I've caught up with you here now, and we're talking about agreements for our information technology systems. You do have 3 separate agreements in your packet. We have contracted with Envision IT Solutions for a number of years now, and I would tell you that this is a world out there where you want to be on top of your IT services, and they have done really a fantastic job. You know, we get things coming at us on a daily basis. They are very much on the job and have done a great job of protecting our systems. The reason that you have 3 separate agreements is we basically have 3 different servers. So we have one in City Hall here that would serve administration and executive, water and electric utilities. We have a separate server setup with RPD, the police department, and then a third setup with the fire department. So you would have a separate agreement for each one of these. This is renewal of an existing agreement, or an agreement we've had in place for a number of years. And Mayor, if I could, I will look for the amounts.
They've got a monthly wage, but
Generally, how we would figure this is on the number of workstations that would be at on a particular server, and then the server itself, and then the backup services. And so I'm looking at the contract. Let me figure out which location this is.
Did you need me to
A little help, Michael.
assist?
Yeah.
So as Scott said, we do have 3 separate contracts. The Envision IT did let me know that compared to last year's contract on the cities, we do have 2 new workstations, so we went from 25 units to 27. I think we had some new personnel, maybe 1 here at the city and 1 at RPS that we added this year. The rest of the expenses have remained the same. You'll recall last year we did have an increase of $5 per workstation because we did enhance some of our cybersecurity. I can tell you that that's been worth its weight in gold because I was actually the potential victim myself of a malware scare. And I received an email, looked legitimate, from a law firm that had done an IPRA request, and it had a complete copy of our correspondence below, but I didn't look at the email address close enough, and it clearly was not that law firm. And so when I clicked on what I thought was a follow-up to a previous IPRA request, it was trying to download something to my system. And I mean, within probably 5 minutes, Envision was calling me. They knew what was going on. They cleaned up my computer because it was infected or whatever, but whatever cybersecurity enhancements that we did last year prevented that. But they still had to go in the back end and clean things up a little bit. But they did tell me that there's very few of their clients at the time that we had opted for that cybersecurity, because they were still upgrading their systems from Windows 7 to 10. So, you know, as the city manager said, we've taken a lot of steps over the last few years to upgrade our workstations with the latest operating systems, and it's really helped with the security aspect of things. But the particular client that had the same issue had to pay about $60,000 to deploy an IT team on site to try to remedy their situation. So anyway, like I said, very scary. I don't know a lot about this stuff. I know just enough to run the operations that I need to. And then with the police and fire, as the city manager said, they do have their separate servers. So theirs is a monthly cost quoted for their individual workstations and servers as well.
so it looks like just roughly about 87,000 a year for all 3 of them. Okay. Any questions or comments for Michael Allen or Scott?
I know, it seems like a lot, but I mean, I feel like this is one of the most important things, and we
Absolutely.
protect our data and people's data as they're interacting with the city.
Right. Yeah, and I think as we move forward with having credit card options and things like that, you know, we can rest assured knowing that, yeah, any data that we collect is protected. Right.
I'll even add to it, I'm the new station, and it works really good. It's really got me out big time, so it's really good.
Good.
Go.
I'll make a motion to approve the three, contracts between Raton and Envision IT Solutions provided by Managed IT Services.
Motion and a second to approve all three contracts with Envision. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item J, deliberate and act on resolution 2023-37, authorization for the city of Raton to be a named party in potential litigation led by the New Mexico Municipal League. Mr. Barry.
Mayor Commission, in your packet, you have information relating to retroactive assessments from the state health pool to members of the state health pool, which the city of Raton is a member of the pool for health insurance for our employees and life insurance as well. And so the state health pool has got a little problem there. They reported at the 23 legislative session that they were in a $119 million hole. And in House Bill 2, which has been approved by the legislature, signed by the governor, and chaptered, it provided some sections about making that fund solvent again. This is administered through the General Services Department of the state of New Mexico. They responded to House Bill 2 by sending invoices to local government, I'm assuming all pool members, but local government, that's municipalities and counties covered under the pool, and their retroactive payments. That means that they're seeking payment for a previous year, a year that has been settled and the books closed on. The city of Raton had received an invoice from General Services and an amount roughly about $220,000. Local governments received very large invoices from General Services Department. There's been a lot of discussion with the New Mexico Municipal League, and the issue here, to go over this, rates have got to increase to cover this $119 million hole. It kind of indicates some poor management on the part of General Services Department in this. We haven't seen increases in this health insurance. They cite the impacts of COVID, but yet the rates really haven't changed since COVID had occurred, and they dug themselves in this hole. We would expect going forward that we'll see increases in the state health insurance pool if we choose to stay in that, and the services that we get from that, and likely pretty significant increases. But again, the issue is invoicing us for a year that's closed. The Council for Municipal League says that's just not legal. You can't go back in a previous year and send a bill. We can't pay a bill that we get later on. And so we've been asked by Municipal League to join with them in seeking an injunction from a court that would halt the request for this retroactive payment. That's what this consists of. I think that the clear legal principle is they can't ask and we can't pay it, and so I would think that we would see some pretty quick results on this request for an injunction. But Municipal League has asked you, and I am passing this along to you, if the city of Raton would be included, be authorized to be a named party to that request for an injunction. I've drafted a resolution for your consideration that lays out some of the information for you, and I can hold up there and answer any questions that you might have in regard to this issue.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barry. And just some additional comment on that. This is not something that snuck up on these guys. They've been reminded for 2 or 3 years, you need to raise your rates. In fact, there was legislation a year ago recommending the raising of the rates, and the governor line item vetoed it. So it's not that they weren't aware of this, but they're, like Mr. Barry said, they are asking us to pay for a service that we've already paid for and have already received. So, yeah.
With this new litigation, they can't come and add the last year's back onto to bill us again, can they?
That's our contention, is that they cannot do that. They're trying to do that effectively, and we are going to oppose that. And this is how we're imposing that, and seeking an injunction by the appropriate court to halt that action.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments,
I
questions?
would state that New Mexico Municipal League has retained counsel. They are working on this. They've asked all of their members to take a similar action, and we're stronger when we all join together, as there have been previous actions like this. So municipalities, I would state that this affects county government too, and I understand that Association of Counties is taking a similar action, and counties will be joining that action as well.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-37, authorization for the city of Raton to be named party in potential litigation led by the New Mexico Municipal League.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-37. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Well, I'll tell you what, Desiree, resolution, let's do roll
Sure.
call vote, please.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo.
Yes.
And Commissioner Chatterley.
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you.
Mayor, I would report that I have had some conversations with Senator Campos. He sits on the Legislative Finance Committee. The LFC was meeting in Las Cruces today, and I asked for Senator Campos' support on helping to correct this situation that we see as improper, and he said he would bring it up at the LFC today. We do have a letter from Representative Jack Chatfield, co-signed by Senator Pat Woods, that also opposed this action for the retroactive payments.
All right, thank you. Item K, deliberate and act on resolution 2023-38, Kearney Film Production and Workforce Facility Support of Grant Funding Application to Economic Development Administration. Mr. Barry.
Mayor Commission, City of Raton staff and staff of North Central, the COG, have worked on a potential application for grant funding to the U.S. Economic Development Administration. Now, I'll tell you that previously, the City of Raton has submitted an application to the EDA in regard to Kearney School, and that was turned down. And that program was specific to assistance to coal-impacted communities. And it looked like a slam dunk. Who could be more impacted by the loss of coal mining employment than Raton? But we were not successful in that request. This is specific to a program that deals with a presidential disaster declaration for certain states and certain counties within those states that were affected by 2 hurricanes, floods, and fire during the past calendar year. Colfax County is a designated county under that presidential declaration, and what the basis of our request is that if the request is funded, that would improve the economic resilience of the community of Raton, and that would help us weather any of these wildfire disasters or floods that we might see in the future as well. We have done extensive work with the staff of EDA, and I'm very optimistic about the potential for funding for this. They did state that they would like to spread the funding around to all of the designated states and all of the designated counties within those states. And so this would be an application from Colfax County as a designated county. What we put together in the way of a budget is a nominal $1.9 million request for Kearney School. In the resolution that you would consider to support this grant application. I've rounded that up to 2 million, but in the budget we're submitting, it's a little south of the 2 million. There's a 20% match required. And I think in our previous application, we may not have been able to give them a direct answer as to the matching funds. But what clearly we can match this with, you cannot match with other federal funds, but we can match with the capital outlay that was awarded to Raton from the legislature in 2022. So we would name that as the match, would be $400,000. And if we added up all of the funding, if we were successful in this request, Kearney School would be about a $6 million project, and we are proceeding along quickly. I would say that Kearney School is, that project is really our top priority moving forward to get that project really moving forward and implement that. If you like the application, and the City of Raton would be the applicant for this grant funding, we would plan on submitting it by the end of this week. And so we'll move pretty quickly on this.
Mr. Berry, what's the time frame of award of this to you?
They will start accepting applications July 1st. You can submit applications through some date off into the fall, but the sense that we got is it's kind of a first come, first serve. Your best chance for getting funding is get it in early. Get it in actually before July 1st.
Alrighty. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Berry?
Nope.
Entertain a motion.
I will move to approve resolution number 2023-38.
Second.
Motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-38. Des, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Sagata,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo, and Commissioner Chatterley.
Yes.
Item L, deliberate and act on resolution 2023-39, authorizing the City of Raton to utilize the Houston Galveston Area Council HGAC contract for the purchase of one new Type 1 ambulance. I believe we have Mr. Russell to address this, Mr. Berry, correct?
Mayor, Commission, just a quick comment. I've asked Mr. Russell, he is our emergency manager for the City of Raton, who has worked on this project. Earlier, we mentioned that the City of Raton is planning to or is investing $2.7 million in new equipment. This would be one of those pieces of equipment. This would be a new ambulance to replace some of the old equipment that we have been operating. And Mr. Russell, I'll let you fill in the blanks from there, please.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm back. So, for the FY24 year, we had put in a budget of $180,000 to purchase another transfer unit. I was getting ready to sign the proposal that we were gonna have a new unit in the next couple months. 2 days before I was about to sign that, I got notice that do not sign that. The unit has been damaged by hail and they are totaling it out. So we have this other unit for you, and it is a Type 1 ambulance, so it's a box style versus the van style that we typically use on our transfers. This box style, we can go ahead and after about 4 or 5 years, if the truck chassis is showing its age, we can take that box off and put it on another chassis. So that is an advantage of that. It's not gonna cost us $300,000-$400,000 to do that, where it would to get a new ambulance, it would cost us probably about $100,000 at this time. Of course, everything's going up right now, so who knows? What I'm asking for basically is for a budget increase, and I had passed out a sheet there. The total price of this ambulance is gonna cost me about $240,000. I am getting money from the county. They're gonna put in about $40,000. And then that would bring us up to about $220,000, and that leaves me with a balance of $18,000 still. And I still have to also purchase a gurney. So, the gurney price is about 22,000, and I'm expecting to get about 12,000 from the county for the excise tax this year. And with that, I'm looking about $28,000, about $30,000 increase on that 180,000 that you guys had budgeted for 24.
So there's two things here. One is we budgeted the 180 in the interim budget. We would have to reflect this change in the final budget, which we'll be working on, and we have to submit in the latter part of July, but we'll come back with an action on there. And then there's the purchase part of this. So under the resolution, you would authorize City of Raton staff to proceed with the purchase of this unit as Mr. Russell had described.
Any other questions or comments? The price
Darn
of,
that hail, that's my comment.
and,
Well,
and in our conversations yesterday, the price of the gurney went up $4,000 overnight.
everything
That's
is
inflation
going
for
up,
That,
yes.
that's
So
crazy.
one of those things that I am also doing is I am trading in one of our old EKG monitors, and it brought it down a few dollars, as you can see, but not enough. And the other thing I have talked to her about is if there is an older model out there, I would be willing to take that on. So it might drop the price also. So we'll see what she has out there.
Dusty, why don't you tell us about what we're replacing, though? What are we
So,
using right now, and what are we?
We are, with this unit, it is actually replacing two of our old transfer units that we actually donated and gave to Tucumcari. So we are replacing those two units. Once we get this unit in place, we'll have two transfer meds, and then we'll still have two in-town ambulances that we're running, so.
And as I understand, those units were over 300,000 miles.
Yes, they were showing their age. One of them was 2008 or 9, and had over 300,000 miles on it, and the other one had 250,000 miles on it. So, you know, this was something we needed to do, and for the safety of our crew, we thought, let's go ahead and get that done. Like I said, this is gonna be a huge advantage for us. It's not our typical transfer unit. Like I said, it's a box, so we can take it off the truck and put it on another truck, as opposed to getting a whole new setup every single time. So I'm looking forward to that. That's why I'm looking at the quality of how these are built, and some of them are a little more costly than we have paid in the past, but it's because of the quality of work also. So.
Now, Mayor and Commission, I can tell you that Dusty is, pulled some cards out of his sleeve to bring you this county here. But basically, we're looking at a purchase from general fund reserve again. So the previous budget we talked about, general fund reserve, and we would bump that up marginally as stated here.
Oh, one other thing was the paint job. If you notice, all of our units are currently red. This one would be white, and that would be because the paint job would cost about $30,000 or $40,000. So we're gonna make this a feature truck and just have it a white unit, and then kind of add the decal on there, and kind of.
White's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, with that all being said, we could take possession of this truck at the end of August, possibly, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
As I was talking with him yesterday, I was discussing inflation. And I told him, you know, we bought hotshot trucks for the senior center 2 years ago for a little over $50,000. Just bought one for the city of Socorro last week, $81,000 in 18 months. Same truck, same setup, $81,000.
It's insane, and I still have the one ambulance on back order, and still looking at it next year, so.
Now, if we didn't buy this unit, but we spec'd a different unit, What's the delivery time on that?
Delivery time was about 1.5 to 2 years, so, you know, it's ridiculous right now. The workforce up wherever they're making these is not helping, so.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adopt, resolution 2023-39 for the, utilize the Houston Galveston Area Council contract for the purchase of one new Type 1 ambulance for, the information in the packet.
Oh, second.
A motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-39. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item M, deliberate and act on resolution 2023-40, May financial report. Michael Allen.
Mayor and Commission, in your packet, we do bring to you this evening our May financial report. You'll see on our general fund summary, the general fund ending cash balance less our 1/12 reserve available cash would be $4,556,291.25. I've also provided you the ending cash balances in our remaining funds. You'll also see there in the middle that the June gross receipts tax was received. This will be the final distribution of this fiscal year, and we will be 23.08% above our budget projections. So we were very conservative in our estimates this year. We did have a tremendous amount of construction, which contributed to that, as well as the unpredictability of not knowing what the online sales tax was going to generate for Raton. So as you'll recall, in the FY24 budget, we haven't budgeted quite as conservatively because we're relying on some of this data that we've gathered throughout the year. So that is how we submitted the FY24 budget, in addition to funding a lot of those capital purchases out of the reserves. So the City of Raton did submit our proposed interim budget by June 1st. I did email it to you, and I also included it in the packet this evening, the approval letter from the Department of Finance. So you'll see that attached there at the end. There are certain things that we need to provide in the final budget, so there's kind of a running list there of items that I'll be working on to submit with the final budget. We will close out the fiscal year. Friday is June 30, so we're working with department heads to close out as many purchase orders that we can. As long as the goods or services are received by June 30, we can still pay invoices after the fiscal year. We'll just have to accrue those expenses in our audit report. You'll see in the letter from DFA, they did talk a little bit about, I wanted to mention that we will budget the actual amount of the LEPF distribution. It will be an increased amount for this fiscal year, and our department is eligible to receive $107,000. So that will be added to the final budget. They did also include kind of their cautionary note there at the bottom. It just says, please note that the general fund cash balance is being depleted 19.86%. So I did provide them with specific details as to what we intend to use the reserves for. As the city manager said, we'll be working on the final budget with the action this evening on the ambulance. I'll be adding some of that to the final budget, and then any other changes that we may have. So I anticipate that we could talk about it a little bit more in depth at the first meeting in July, and then bring to you that final budget at the July 25th meeting. Other than that, I did have one under capital projects. We had one little negative cash balance, and that was just the timing of the reimbursement request that was submitted to Raton Main Street. Those funds were received and have been deposited into the account. So that'll clear that up on the next month's report. We are working diligently to close out as many grants as we can. I know that I did just submit a airport utility CARES Act reimbursement today so that we can get those funds before the end of the fiscal year. We just have a lot of grant money right now, more than we ever have, so most of our grants will cross 2 fiscal years and probably will be closed out in the next fiscal year. So, and then we're hopefully, with some of the action taken this evening, we'll be getting additional funds through the EDA and some of these other programs that we've applied for as well. Is there any questions regarding our financial report? I didn't mention, but I did also include in your packet the lodger's tax comparison. You'll see we do have the month of June to close that out, but currently we're about 6% less than the previous fiscal year, which was quite a bit higher than any year that we've had in the last 5, but I think that we'll easily get close to that $500,000 collected in lodger's tax revenue for FY 22-23, and we'll certainly make some adjustments with the final budget using some of that data. Gas tax comparison, as we've talked over the months, we have seen somewhat of a decline compared to last year. I would say it's a little bit more consistent with the 2021 distributions, but we know that probably the price of fuel, less consumption due to that could possibly be a factor there. And then cannabis excise tax, we will have completed the fiscal year collecting $36,440 in cannabis excise tax.
Alrighty, any questions for Michael Ann? Anna, good job.
Yeah, thank you for your hard work.
Entertain a motion.
I will so move to approve Resolution 2023-40, May Financial Report.
A motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2023-40. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item O, or N, where are we? Deliberate and act on Resolution 2023-41, Budget Adjustment Number 18. Michael Ann.
Mayor and Commission, we do bring to you this evening Budget Adjustment Number 18. Throughout the year, we try to do 1 or 2 budget adjustments a month. We are nearing the end of the fiscal year, so after this one, we will have 1 more. Our plan is to close out the fiscal year, calculate all of those ending cash balances, and then we'll roll all of the actual ending cash balances into our final budget, make any final budget adjustments, and so we'll bring with the final budget our 4th quarter final report and that final budget adjustment at the July 25th meeting. I was going to amend this before the meeting because I had a couple other needs in the, I think it was grounds maintenance, but then I figured, well, we'll just leave it all till the final. So these are really the budget adjustments that I found during my review of the May financial reports. So we're doing some line item adjustments in the general fund, also within the fire fund, lodger's tax promotional fund, library building, sanitation fund, and then the trust and agency fund. And those are actually the distributions of the municipal gross receipts portion that goes to the Raton Waterworks. So since we've exceeded those projections, I needed to adjust that fund to reflect that. Is there any questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-41, budget adjustment number 18, fiscal year 2023.
A motion and a second to adopt. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item O, deliberate and act on Resolution 2023-42, adopting a lease accounting policy per GASB 87 guidelines. Michael Ann, Scott, who's taking this one?
Let's go, Michael Ann.
Mayor and Commission, you may recall when our audit firm, SJT Group, was here a few months ago presenting our final audit. We may or may not have talked about some of this, but the GASB 87 was a new accounting rule that came out a couple years ago, and we were required to implement this rule after June 16 of 2021. So our most recent audit was for fiscal year 22. If you've had a chance to read the audit, there's several sections within the audit that reflect this rule. And so I did work with the auditors this year quite extensively to identify all of the city's leases, and I prepared spreadsheets for them, and then we kind of went through a review process to see which ones actually qualify to be recorded in the financial statements under this new rule. So the city has quite a few leases. As far as, I'd say we only have about 4 or 5 that are generally like copier leases. The majority of our leases would be hangar leases at the airport. We also have several tower sites with companies like Baca Valley, Spectrum Communications, and then we have other leases such as the Sugar Eat State Park. We have some leases that we've done through some of our LEDA projects, such as the Ramel Farms, the Raton Readiness Center. We have some water rights leases, billboard leases. That gives you a general idea of what the types of leases are that we have. So as part of the requirement in working with our audit firm this year, we need to adopt an internal policy. And so that's what I bring to you here this evening. Going back to the GASB 87, this rule established a single model for lease accounting, and it's based on the principle that leases are financings of the right to use an asset. As I stated, this would apply to fiscal year 22 and any subsequent fiscal years. And so in that, you'll see in the resolution that as a city government, we do strive to be transparent and accountable to the public, and that we do desire to follow the recommended accounting procedures and remain compliant with the audit process, which further enhances that transparency and understanding of our financial reporting of the city and to its citizens. So with that, I've developed a policy, and like I said, going back to the audit report, a lot of this was discussed in the report. But our policy, if we look at the background and the definitions, let's see. Well, let's go to item C, the lease determination. So when our auditors look at this, we had to choose a threshold for materiality. Never say that word. And so our threshold was established to be $15,000, and that's in situations where we're the lessee and the lessor. And so to determine which leases would be subject to this accounting treatment, we've identified what criteria they must meet. And so if you see where it says the lease contract conveys control of the right to use another entity's non-financial asset, the non-cancelable lease has a maximum possible term of more than 12 months. So if it's a lease less than 12 months, it would not be material and not need to be accounted for in our financial statements. I know some of this gets a little technical, and it came kind of straight out of the accounting rules. You'll see that it says the City of Raton engages in agreements to lease office equipment, including copiers, scanners, and mailing equipment. The only thing I didn't add here, and I was thinking maybe I should, if when I was looking at our audit report, they did put a statement in there that because on the hangar land and space. Because the rental of the land and the hangar space is considered to be cancelable, it does not fall within the scope of GASB statement number 87. So I mean, in addition to the copiers, scanners and that, I mean, I could add that particular line within our policy. Because that was something in working through all of this with the auditors. Most of those are 50-year leases, and they do include provisions for additional renewal periods. But I think the key there is if it can be canceled, they did exclude that from being recorded in the financial statements. So if you're okay with that, I would make that one revision to that paragraph, and I would just take it straight out of the language they had in our audit report. And I think that would be important for anybody else that's coming in that's new to this, to know, or if we change audit firms, which I don't see us, we're actually contracted to continue with the same audit firm this next fiscal year. And I do appreciate their help and assistance in kind of working through some of this. There are some other agreements that were subject to this treatment. Leasing office space, buildings, or land. So when we look at our audit report, the Raton Public Service Company, we do have a lease with them, and it's about $1,400 a month. So in the audit report, and if you want to go back and look at the report, it's page 57. They do have a pretty extensive kind of an amortization schedule of what the lease payments are, and then we apply what's called a discount rate. And so under the section lease liability, there's some technical terminology there that talks about how you would determine how to calculate a discount rate. We used what was called the incremental borrowing rate, and so this was actually generally used if there's insufficient data. A lot of times these leases don't state either the explicit interest rate or an implicit rate, so most entities would defer to this incremental borrowing rate. And it's generally the federal prime rate plus 1% at the inception of the lease. And so that's all talked about in our audit report. I think at the time we did RPS's, that incremental borrowing rate was 5.75%. So really, all this lease states is that the city will comply with the new GASB 87 rules, and that will kind of apply the same methodology and procedures for the next year audit and any subsequent year.
Okay, any questions for Michael Ann?
I think that was most of the key points that I wanted to make. Is there any questions?
It might be worth noting to the general public that GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Yeah, we like to use acronyms.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And on that note, I'll move to approve.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-42. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to item P, City Manager Report, Mr. Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. I will go ahead and make a couple of comments on some of the infrastructure that we have talked about previously. Of course, it's a pretty big year for public works construction. As Michael Ann said, we have a lot of grant money. We've had a lot of success with bringing in some of that, so there's a lot going on out there. I just mentioned that the work has now commenced on the reconstruction of the frontage road project. That's something that we had talked about generally. It will take place north of the Clayton Highway, and it'll run to the East 10th Street Bridge. That's the Raton Creek crossing. We do not have the funds to go on East 10th Street, but this will be the frontage road. The intent is to reconstruct that frontage road to a commercial arterial section. And so it will look very different. The funding is a transportation project fund through NMDOT. The budget is a nominal $1.6 million. We would expect construction to take the rest of this calendar year. If it really moves along well, it does involve asphalt paving. We would try to get that paving done before it gets cold. If we can't do that, we'll take a winter shutdown and we'll look at warmer months to pave it, but that project is under construction currently. A report on one other construction project. We've completed the current phase of the chip seal project. I will tell you that we placed two lifts of chip seal in our pavement preservation efforts on about 8 miles of city streets, generally throughout the city of Raton. And we had reported that the construction included a fog seal on top of that. Just the way that this fog seal asphalt, which is a cationic emulsion, was behaving on some of the streets that we did fog seal, namely Garcia and Martinez, we decided to drive on the streets for the summer and come back and do the fog seal in the fall. But we did add in another project that we've been intending to do. That is to add a fog seal to streets that we have chip sealed in previous years, and that worked very well. So the chip seal project will be complete for a couple of months with the idea that we'll fog seal before the weather is still good. Then I'll give you a comment on the solar array, the photovoltaic project. The contractor has completed the placement of the photovoltaic panels, and currently they're building the interconnection. Now, these photovoltaic panels will generate a direct current, and put that on our distribution system here locally. We'll have to convert that to an alternating current, so that'll take place in the interconnection, and then we have to go through a transformer to get the voltage compatible with what we have on distribution system, and then build the tie to the distribution system. So that will all take place in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and at that time we would expect the photovoltaic to be into production. So if you haven't seen that, that's located along La Mesa Drive on the south end of La Mesa Drive. I did have a conversation, I had several conversations I'll report to you on. I had participated in a Zoom conference with the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department Secretary, that's Cabinet Secretary Provost. She was following up on our Bartlett Mesa Ranch acquisition project. The directors of Game and Fish and State Parks worked for the Secretary. They were included in that discussion, as well as the Nature Conservancy. And so there's various sources of funding going to completing that project, and there's some options on what the state does to fund that, and it involves land and water conservation funds, Pittman-Robertson funding, and then the capital outlay obtained by the city of Raton. So for our part, we'll be trying to get a grant agreement from Department of Finance Administration for the capital outlay portion. I'll probably need to go to Santa Fe and have a meeting with them, because typically what they fund is a public works or an infrastructure project, buying apparatus for a city, or building a bridge, or a wastewater project. So this is a little different. We'll probably go have a meeting with DFA, and then the Secretary had mentioned options they have on funding it from their perspective. So we had that meeting. Along with that, I did talk to New Mexico Game and Fish. They stated that they intend to come to Raton and conduct their quarterly meeting in Raton on August 25th. And tentatively, we would schedule having the meeting in the commission chambers here. In my time around the city of Raton, I don't remember the State Game Commission having their meeting in Raton, so I think that's a great thing, and we will welcome them to town. That's all I have, Mayor.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Berry. That concludes the business portion of the meeting. This meeting is adjourned.